Imagine standing at Cape Canaveral, the wind blowing salty from the Atlantic, and suddenly the ground trembles under the roar of 7 BE-4 engines. That's the moment when Blue Origin's New Glenn comes to life and shows us all that space is no longer just a dream, but a tangible reality. Just recently, on October 30th, Blue Origin conducted a successful static fire test that prepares the rocket for its second flight. And the goal? Nothing less than Mars, with NASA's Escapade mission on board. Let's dive into the details of this epic sequel. From the technical upgrades to what this rocket could mean for space travel in the coming years. Welcome to the mission test mission briefing for the New Glenn Escapade mission. My name is Serwin, and this is Mars Chronicles. Let's take off. New Glenn's second flight from Blue Origin, or NG-2, is scheduled for a launch window from November 9th to 11th. Directly from Launch Complex 36 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. This is the second launch of this heavy lift rocket, which made its debut in January this year and successfully reached orbit. Even though the booster landing failed back then. But hey, that part was optional, and Blue Origin learned from it. This time the booster is called Never Tell Me the Odds, a little Star Wars nickname that fits perfectly with the ambitious mission. Just a reminder, the first booster was called So You're Telling Me There's a Chance. Both names refer to the ambition to land the booster. If Blue Origin manages to land the booster successfully on the floating landing platform called Jacqueline, named after Bezos' mother in the Atlantic, they would be the first to do so after SpaceX. 10 years after SpaceX. The next 2 to 3 years will feel like watching dominoes fall. After Blue Origin, a number of other launchers will also try, including Rocket Lab with their Neutron, Stoke Space with their Nova, Maya Space from France, the Ariane group, and a large group of Chinese aspirants. The one closest on their heels is the Souk 3 rocket from Landspace in China. However, it remains exciting, so keep a close eye on the scene in the coming months. The payload consists of 2 identical small satellites called SKP, which are intended to study the solar wind at Mars, plus a technology demonstration from Viasat for NASA's Communication Services project. Together, the SKP satellites weigh under 500 kilograms, making them light and compact, which is ideal for a direct shot to Mars. Even though they were actually supposed to launch last year. This delay was to be expected and is typical in spaceflight, where schedules are as flexible as rubber. But now they're finally on their way. And New Glenn's ability to carry payloads of up to 45 tons to low Earth orbit, or 13 tons to geosynchronous orbits, makes it perfect for interplanetary missions. Like this one. Imagine, this rocket could theoretically even shoot 7 tons directly to Mars. Enough for probes that help us understand the red planet better, and maybe settle it one day. On its first flight, New Glenn achieved everything that mattered. Reached orbit, deployed the Blue Ring Pathfinder, and proved that the B-4 engines with their LNG-based oxygen-rich combustion are true powerhouses. But what exactly went wrong during the first landing attempt? Well, the 3 BE-4 engines did not reignite properly, probably due to issues with propellant management and the engine valves. Blue Origin has submitted the FAA report with 7 corrective actions that focus precisely on that. Better control over the fuel flow and venting to ensure that the engines fire reliably on return. Hardware. They have optimized the fuel management systems, refined valves and sensors, and probably also implemented software updates. Based on the data from the first flight, internally the engineers estimate the chances of a successful landing on the drone ship Jacqueline at 75%. Optimistic considering how tricky such a controlled return through the atmosphere is, with all the software algorithms that have to work together perfectly. Compare that to SpaceX Falcon 9, which needed several failures before nailing drone ship landings. But Blue Origin has advantages. Many of their engineers come from SpaceX and helped make the Falcon 9 reusable. Accordingly, they're building on those lessons. It's not the same, but Blue Origin already has quite a bit of experience with the New Shepard, which I affectionately call the phallus carousel. If that works, the booster could be refurbished for its third flight in just 90 days. The Mark 1 lunar lander is already waiting. However, those 90 days are the goal. At first, everything will take longer until a routine has been established. Blue Origin will build up a fleet of boosters similar to SpaceX and then rotate them for their missions. And take a look here. While we're talking about this powerful rocket, I started printing a detailed model of the New Glenn with the Prusa Core 1, complete with 7 BE4 engines and the 7-meter payload fairing. I found a great model on Printerbase that perfectly captures the proportions, ideal for visualizing how the booster will land. If you also feel like printing rocket models, check out the Prusa Core 1 via my affiliate link in the description. A perfect tool for fans like us. What can we expect in the coming months? Definitely more action. Blue Origin plans to ramp up to 8 to 10 launches by the end of next year, with customers like Amazon's Kuiper Constellation, AST Space Mobile, and additional NASA missions. The third flight with the Blue Moon Mark 1 could come as early as spring. And in the long term, the New Glenn aims for rapid reuse to naturally reduce costs. Each booster costs over $100 million to build, so reusability has to work to become profitable. By 2030, this could become real competition for SpaceX, with a focus on heavy payloads and moon missions. However, the New Glenn is competing with the Falcon 9, which is already an outdated model for SpaceX that they want to phase out as soon as Starship becomes operational. Sure, there are risks. As with any new rocket, technical hurdles could arise, and the geopolitical competition with China is pushing everyone forward. But that's exactly what makes space exploration so fascinating. Every failure is a step closer to success, and New Glenn could be the game changer that opens the path to the stars for all of us. With the successful static fire and the upgrades, New Glenn is ready to send Escapade to Mars, and maybe even land the booster, a milestone that pushes spaceflight forward. What do you think? Will the landing work this time? Write it in the comments. If you enjoyed this briefing on the New Glenn mission, subscribe to Mars Chronicles and leave a thumbs up. Thanks so much to all channel members and Patreon supporters. If you also want early access to our videos, you can find all the information about it below in the video description. My name is Serwan and this was Mars Chronicles. Thanks for listening. Per Aspera ad Astra.